Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Love It or Shove It. It's me, Irina Portnova, with my co-host, Bruno Gill, and we have our guest, Andrea. Andrea, welcome, and tell a little bit about yourself and what you're doing in this world.
Yeah, I am a naturopathic doctor by trade. I've been a naturopath here in Ontario, Canada for almost 15 years. And I was living in this very structured, pragmatic, masculine energy. But when I started having a family and starting to build different relationships, there was a part of my business that I just felt was missing. And I started then leaning into manifestation tools and hypnotherapy. And now I'm a master mindset coach as well as a trainer in hypnotherapy and NLP. And this is why I'm just so thrilled about our conversation today about really breaking down pragmatic thinking and opening up to different perspectives.
Woohoo, that's so beautiful. Welcome, welcome. And today we are going to be talking about gender roles in relationship. Andrea and I know that we started this discussion already prior coming live. So what do you think about the gender roles in relationship? How do they change over the time?
Okay, that's a very big open-ended question. So I'm going to pick it up from where I've been. So I believe every relationship and every relationship dynamic is a balance of yin and yang. It's a balance of masculine and feminine. And it doesn't matter who is where, but as a partnership, that balance has to be maintained. And as I started with my bio, I came into my relationship with my husband very masculine. So I had that high, yang, driven, go, go, go energy. And for us to balance out our relationship, he then took on more of a relaxed, really calm energy, which when I'm up here doing all the things, this becomes a very resentful place for me to see, which commonly is a big dynamic issue with a lot of women in relationships being like, well, it must be nice that my husband is relaxing. It must be nice that my partner is just watching TV all day while I'm hustling and doing all the things. And when I realized that I was creating that structure because I wanted to stay up here, then I had to also learn strategies to come down so my husband could come up and meet me in the middle. And so for a really long time, we were both equally working and having days off. We were doing a lot of things around the house and going on breaks together. We would have periods where he's a seasonal worker. So he would be on for 4 or 5 months, and I would have to then come down and do all the house stuff. And then when he was off, then I could go back up to my masculine energy because he was at home. So we've really started to calibrate. And I've noticed this dance that we do within our relationship where now we're coming back up here again, but we're really owning it in a very different way. So to answer your question, it's a dance between gender roles. And it doesn't matter who the gender is. It's more of an energetic matching and mirroring of your partner, because if someone wants to take the lead in a dance and they're just whipping their partner around the dance floor, well, that's not going to be very nice for the partner. Or if the partner isn't catching up with the pace or the speed, it really makes the dance look awkward and feel awkward and no one's having a good time. And when I started to really appreciate that every partnership is a balance of plus and minus, of yin and yang, of go energy and relax energy, then it also helped me shift my perspective in what energy was I playing in. And therefore, for us to work, we had to balance and counterbalance each other. Because if both partners are up here, well, then there is no rest and relaxing and play and fun and easygoingness because you're both driven. And if both people are down here, well, then nothing's getting done because you're both just, Netflixing and chilling all day. So that is how I really love to look at where the imbalances in a relationship and then start to dissect it from there.
Oh my God, such a beautiful perspective. Thanks so much for sharing. And I see Bruno is smiling. Bruno, you want to say something?
Can you hear me properly?
Yes.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was great. I was like, wow. It's like I was very impressed. Because that is, that is a perspective that not many people really have. It's hard to not only to balance, right? But it's also hard to like really be aware of that. Like it's all in our awareness. Irina knows this very well. We always talk about this. It's like it's all in our own awareness. And it's like sometimes, especially like when people are aware, to then go and do that, right? Like to then go and just be like, yeah, okay, I have to balance this. Yeah, okay, sure. Like, like it's like not many people can do the, yeah, okay, let's do this. Okay, boom, 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 because it's scary. Like it's scary shit basically, and a lot of people really have fear in that, right? And so like that's awesome. Like the way a person, like the way because it requires a communication, right? I believe so, right? I mean, I believe so. It requires really the communication, and there's always a breadwinner, right? Which is normal. And so there will always be a person who either makes more money or they make the same money because they have a business together, right? Or they have shared bank accounts or whatever, depends on whatever a couple may want or feel like, right? But yeah, I mean, obviously it's like whatever serves your cup, right? And so whatever is your objectives in life, that's exactly what I believe, people should exactly do. And so I was very, very impressed. That's super awesome. That's so
Now, I will preface that statement that I made with it does take a lot of work. It does take a lot of personal letting go. And I know, Irina, you and I were talking about the limiting beliefs that women carry and the emotions that we carry. Everything has a meaning, whereas men's brains are compartmentalized. Right now I'm working, and then I'm going to be at home, and then I'm doing dinner, and then I'll clean. Whereas women, our brains are firing at all cylinders all the time. So I find the first place that women, and I'm only speaking from my own experience, is letting go a lot of the resentment, letting go a lot of the guilt, letting go a lot of the shame and the unrealistic expectations that we put on ourselves to be the best woman, best wife, best mom that we can be. Because we often put a lot of that pressure on us, and then we blame externally our environment as to why we feel a certain way. And that takes a lot of facing a mirror, facing yourself and saying, what is it that I'm actually projecting outwards and not taking full responsibility for? Because I was in that place with my marriage. So I made it sound really beautiful in the beginning, and now I'm going to break it down for everybody. Because in my marriage, I was trying to be the best mom and the best wife and the best house cleaner and the best cook and all these other things. And I started to really hate my life. I started to really resent my family and not having the energy that I wanted or the time for self-care or this or that. And I would remember dreaming of just packing a go bag in the middle of the night when everyone was sleeping and going to a hotel and wanting to just escape. And it was when someone said, well, did you ever consider that you're projecting what's imbalanced in you onto your partner, and that's why you're so upset? And it was just that light bulb moment where I was like, shit, I gotta change some things within me. I have to let some expectations go of me. I have to let go of some limiting beliefs and antiquated roles of a woman in a dynamic that is now, so that I can meet my partner in the middle. Because up until that point, I wasn't letting my life change. And so I was resisting it. And that brings up a lot of women that I work with are holding on to so much resentment that they can't see any way forward. They literally can't see it any different way because they have so much anger about where they are now. And so that does take a lot of effort. And I found every time my husband and I had to make a big calibration, it would take a month or two for us to settle. It wasn't like, oh, okay, just today we're going to do this and tomorrow we're going to be this way. It took time and a lot of patience for us both to recalibrate. And the last big one we had, I was so startled by the shift that I actually blew a disc in my back because it just hit me so hard from an energetic place where all of a sudden we were here and then we weren't, and I had to catch up. So, it's not easy. It is not for the faint of heart, but now that we've settled in our new dynamic, it's a beautiful place for us both to be, where we're both thriving in the way that we want to.
You know what? I appreciate what you're sharing, Andrea, because everything in life is the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the relationship can never be the same when we start living together, when we grow through that. Even nowadays, right? It's still expected to evolve into something else, right? Because changes is part of our human nature. So it's normal, but I love the way that you are sharing, just to demonstrate that everything is possible when we have the desire for it. And if we communicate clearly to each other what exactly we want in the relationship, right? And then, like you mentioned, meet each other in the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So nobody feels like, okay, why somebody steps on my throat? Why do I have to, back off, right? So it has to be the middle ground and understanding. And I think it's good, even given a set timing frames, like say, okay, let's try for a month and see how it works, right? So this way you can adjust and see. So this way the partner doesn't feel pressured and saying, hey, this is not what I signed up for the rest of my life, right? At least you could say, you know what, let's just test it. Let's see where it's going to take us for a month. And then we'll just, sit down together and reevaluate.
And that's also easier said than done a lot of times, because if we're coming from a past where we don't trust people, where we expect them to let us down, then as the partner, we either say, I'm giving you the patience, the time, the space to show me that we can do this. Because what happens in a lot of relationship dynamics is we'll have that meeting and it sounds all good on a Monday. And then on Tuesday, he didn't do what he was supposed to do, or she didn't say what she was supposed to say. And then it's for nothing. So when I say it's difficult AF, I mean it, because for me, who works 3 times faster than my husband, I had to be so patient, and I had to allow him to calibrate his way, right? And Bruno's laughing.
Yeah, because I'm the same. Like,
Yeah,
I'm fast. Like, I'm fast, multitask, boom, 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 left, right, and center. Let's go, we're moving. That's it.
And so when our partner is the opposite, because most times we attract our opposites, then the person who's the fastest, who's just like, I don't understand why this is so difficult. This is what we said we were going to do, and why don't we just fucking do it? But our partners aren't always at the same pace as us, right? So I had to really bite my tongue. I had to really stay patient. I had to really just be like, okay, this isn't how I would have done it. This is how he's doing it. And I mean, we could be talking about same-sex partnerships. It doesn't matter. I'm just in a male-female relationship. And he also has to be really patient with me, where I'm just like, why isn't this happening? Like, I will go off the rails sometimes. He calls me his emotional unicorn, where I have my moments of crazy and then I'm pretty cool the rest of the time. And so he also has to respect that part of me, where I'm just like, I'm getting impatient, I'm getting frustrated, I'm venting. I'm not blaming, but I am venting. And then he takes that on and has to transmute that through him. So that's the other part of it, right? So I know Scott is my perfect opposite, which means he is the opposite of me in all the things, including speed and initiation and all the things, whereas I'm very driven. So I had to learn to take a chill pill, and I had to learn to come down a few notches, and I had to learn to let him do it his way and make his own mistakes. And he also had to give me that same space. That's the only reason why we work. Because it's when there's this battle between gender roles, when there's this battle between partners, where you're waiting for them to fail. Give me a reason to get mad at you and I'll get mad at you all day. That isn't opening up the space for balance.
I love that. That's so true. So Bruno, what is in your
it's great content. This is great content right now.
Yes.
Yes.
Bruno, what do you say? What are the gender roles for you? in the relationship?
I don't give a shit as long as things are done. That's all that matters. That's part of my let's get things done. Like that's part of my stuff, right? It's like, look, you don't want to do this, okay, I do it. You do the other thing now.
Mhm.
You want to switch roles again? Like, okay, I switch roles. I don't care. As long as things get done, I don't mind. As long as there's no ego, everything works, right? Because men don't do this or women don't do this. Yeah, we don't live in the 1500s anymore. So like just accept it. As long as things get done, that's all that matters. But I relate to what Andrea is saying, because I also had to take kind of a chill pill as well, like many times, because for me it's obvious, because my mind never stops, but like it's always fast, especially because I talk very fast as well. And so that's also a sign, like people talk very fast, like that's a sign that their mind is like boom boom boom, like thinking twice as fast. Especially like that's something very common for like Eastern European cultures, or even like because I'm Portuguese, so our cultures are very similar, from Romanian, Ukrainian, Portuguese, very similar. And like we're very much like this, right? And so it's but we also have to be a little bit, we have to learn how to be patient, and be calm with the people that we love, right? So take the time to explain. But in stressful situations, that's for me was the moments where I mean obviously, like even like before we started, I lost my shit completely. Even before we started, I lost my shit because things were obvious and they were like whatever, and I'm like, I was losing it completely. But that's the thing, I had to learn like through time, to like really be more calm, be more patient, right? Then really like not explode like super much, because before, back then, I was always exploding. It was like every single day exploding. Like I can't live like this. I mean, look at you, what are you doing? Because if you do that by your own, when you meet your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, or your kids, how is it going to be? Are you going to explode on your kids? Or like that's not very healthy. That's not a very healthy person to live with, be married to, be a kid of, right? Or be a son of, right? And so it is very important that that people learn how to control themselves, because when then we apply that to gender roles, right, in relationship, there's always a person who takes the first step. I believe that, there's always a person who takes the first step. There's always a person who initiates convo. There's always a person who initiates the next thing that's going to happen. There's always a person who initiates either a convo about, how was your day, or a convo of let's talk, let's fix this, right? Because it's very rare that two people actually go at the same time. It's actually one person that goes to the room or to the couch or to this or to that, right? And then people just start talking, right? And for me, in my relationship, I believe that it is the man's duty. So me being a man, it is actually my duty to go and, get her. Like, look, I thought about this, I thought about that, whatever, right? Simply because I feel like men are go-getters, right? In a traditional sense. I like to mix it up a little bit. When it comes to gender roles, I don't like to be too modern, because when you're too much of something, will always be too much, right? When you do too much of one thing, for me it's too much, so it stops being healthy, it starts being toxic, right? So there has to be like tradition and modernity, right? So in my opinion, you have to be able to apply both, right? And so for example, when it comes to gender roles in a relationship, when it comes to fixing a problem, right? I feel like the toxic traditional stuff would be, like a man screaming or whatever, because the toxicity and the wounded masculine, whatever, right? That ends up portraying more the traditional type of, that sense. But instead of that, just listening and being calm and whatever, right? More the modern type of, emotional available man. But in a traditional sense of, I go to you because I'm a man. I take the step. I take the step. I go to you, right? And I think that's a very brave thing to do. whether if it is in the relationship, whether if it is with friends, but in this case, in a relationship with your wife or with your girlfriend or whatever, right? I feel like that's very, very, that's very brave. That's very courageous. It shows emotional maturity, and that's good for every man, because like, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's an example of a gender role that I like to have in the relationship, right? But when it comes to other things like cleaning and whatever, I'm like, look, I do not care. As long as it gets done, right? That's all it matters. You want to do it today, do it today. I do the other thing. Tomorrow you do the other thing and I clean. You do like that. As long as it gets done. For me, whatever side you sleep better. It doesn't matter.
You know what? I'm just smiling because my favorite thing, the household thing to do, is to wash the dishes. And I mean not in the dishwasher. I mean, by hand. Because this is the traditional way. I used to do it in Ukraine when I was younger. And I keep doing it. And it just like, I don't mind it. But ask me to do something else, it's like, I don't think so.
And I refuse to do dishes. And that's another part of gender roles, right? So if we're breaking it all down into a modern place, I hate washing dishes, but I will run the dishwasher all day and empty out the dishwasher and fill it up all day. Scott is really great at starting the laundry, but not great at pulling it out of the machine. So I love folding laundry and putting it away. So here's where we've also found what we naturally want to do and not want to do, and also came together in that. Whereas before, I'd be like, well, how on earth would you start something and not want to finish it? Like, that isn't doing the laundry. If you put it in the machine, you take it out of the machine, you see this all the way through. But I had to respect that Scott is not a good finisher. He just isn't. His hard wiring is not. He's a great starter, a really poor finisher in a lot of things. And so I'm really great at accomplishing and finishing. So we also matched each other there. So again, what we're talking about here is not who does it. And I love that you said that, Bruno, where it's like, there's things that from a values perspective and my belief in what I can bring to this relationship, I want to hold true all day, every day. And then there's other parts where I'm like, I don't care. So long as it gets done, whether it's me or you or we're both doing it, that's cool. But that's also part of the respect of the balance of gender roles, right? So before, I'd get pissed and mad and it would turn into this big argument. Like, why can't you just put the fucking clothes away? And now I've learned to appreciate that it's just not in his wheelhouse, right? It's just not what he likes to do. But he does like to wash the dishes by hand, which I will never do. And so if I have hard limits, he also will have hard limits. And this is all about appreciating who you manifested into your world intentionally to teach you these lessons. And the relationships that learn to grow together will grow together. And there are relationships that are designed to be what we call wound mates, where you match because of a common trauma. And as soon as one person heals in the relationship has to dissolve. And so, it's just so important, again, for me to always say, what is it that's triggering me about this situation? Is it something that's valid, or is it something that I am thinking or my belief? And more often than not, it's a me problem. It's not a him problem. There are times, though, when it is a him problem, for sure.
That's so greatly put. And like when it comes to kids, right? It's interesting because usually it's like, actually this is like an interesting factor that I observed, because in my marriage, the father of my kids, he wasn't like really involved in that much, but he was like a breadwinner. And it was more like my role to do that. And obviously I got the help from my parents, from his parents. And what I observed, like living in, like in America, it's like, here more culturally that I observed, like, man, I really, really these caring, nurturing dads. And I was always like looking and thinking, oh my God, this must be nice to have, like a husband this way. But again, it's just coming like from the culture that I'm coming. It's more like, it was more like female job, right? You are the mother, you are nurturing type, you take care of the kids, and I'm the provider. What are your points
You
on
know,
that?
I mean, I just have something to say before Andre. I feel like that completely like I feel like women feel a lot neglected like that. Because if you tell a woman like, look, you're only good for this and only this. Oh, but what about this? Yeah, but it don't matter because you're not a man, and so your problems don't matter. You're not gonna die anyways because you're gonna stay home locked. So that's it. I mean, like when somebody is treated like that, like if somebody said that to a man, right? Back then, they're like, huh? What? Be quiet. It's like, and then you go from that to nowadays, people are like, there are a lot of go-getters, and like there's no balance between that and the go-getting type of driven woman, right? Who has her friends that feel that they all have like massive jobs and stuff, and oh my God, I just made that money, and I traveled there, and the company gave me this and they gave me that, and then, oh, and what about you? What about you? Oh yeah, I'm at home taking care of my kids. Yeah, what a boring life. It ain't that boring. I mean, come on, you're preparing the next generation of kids. You have one job, is to not fuck up the education of your own son, right? Simple. And you make him be a good man or a good woman, right? And so he can be a good human being, right? Simple. It's like there's no balance in between that, in my personal opinion, right? Andrea, you were talking about the perfectionistic tendencies, right? I'm a woman self-coach. It's mainly perfectionism. It's mainly that, subconscious, like anxiety that crippled in between the ages of 12 and 14 and just destroyed them, women on their teenage years, constantly. And that goes into relationships, friendships, family, job, everything, right? And so it's to find the balance. The balance is very important, right? Because then in relationships, everything that we are talking about here, right, will then just amount, right? Everything will amount on top of both, right? But even so, especially in a relationship, the life of a man and the life of a woman is completely different. Because no matter how modern we become, that traditional sense will always be there, right? That driven masculine. When a woman has a problem, if she needs somebody to save her, she will call a cop, which is probably a man anyways. She will call a firefighter, which is probably a man anyways, right? That foundation needs to always be there. But then balance in between all that, to have that balance in between that, right? Of seeing what, which one does the better job, right? Is that serious? Is it not that serious, right? Do we really need to fight over this, right? Like, can't you just do that yourself? It's not that hard. Don't let your ego get in the way. Be open, be receptive, right? Yeah, I mean, I feel like, yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I agree with a lot of what you just said there, if I can call that out a little bit.
Absolutely.
And that is, so first and foremost, if a woman values the traditional role, the antiquated role of stay-at-home mom, raise my kids, and that is something she truly values, that's one thing. And if the man truly values that my way of showing love to my family is to earn and have the big job, well, then that's cool. And that is the balance that we're talking about here. But I also came from a place where I was raised as a traditional woman by a grandmother who stayed at home and made the babies, and that's all that she's ever known, to someone who got into a relationship where I could have stayed home, taken care of the kids, made a mediocre amount of money, and never fully tapped into my potential and stayed very angry at my spouse. Although I stayed with him because I did the female role, and he went off and made a mediocre amount of money because he doesn't have the drive to make a ton. And then he would come home, but he's doing the man's job, right? And so in our dynamic, his whole dream is to stay home with the kids and go on the golf course. That is his dream life, which is a very reversed way of looking at things. And I love that I get to be the breadwinner and go out and hustle and work and make all the money. And for our relationship, that works. The real question that anyone who's watching and listening to this conversation that I always want to ask is this dynamic working for you? Because saying always isn't an appropriate word to use now, because always dictates that is a matter of fact, non-negotiable word. And that isn't true. There is no always in any relationship. There can be periods of time where we are like this and then like this. There is years of time where someone is completely out of a job and the other partner does this, and then it flips. So the real question is, are you in a relationship dynamic that is lighting you up and you could look back on it and say, I lived my best life? Or are you stifling yourself so that the antiquated roles still play out? Are you stifling yourself to feed your partner's ego and what they value? And that goes on both sides. And if anyone in the partnership is feeling that way, well, number one, they're going to up level, and then most likely the relationship is going to dissolve. Two, they either grow together and learn how to communicate properly, or three, the person who's stifling and staying small just lives a fucking anger and resentful ridden life. And they're the ones that often will be in pain and have no energy and like hate everything about their life. And they will hold that to the grave. And I don't want any of those things for anybody. So there's no always, and it's not if we need support, we always have to go to a man. It's just that is how it used to be.
Yes.
And now things are shifting, and now things are changing, and there's way more resources out there than ever possible, where now stay-at-home moms are making fucking bank, like selling shit on Amazon, right? So now, before it was all about industry, and you had to go to school, get a degree, go to work, and then you work until you die, which is a very structured, right or wrong, what I call value level 4 way to live. But now we're really looking at this beautiful entrepreneurial boom of both men and women. And depending on the age at which people are, it's a natural dynamic shift where for the first 40 years of a woman's life, she may be stay at home. And then in those last 40 years, she wants to go out and fucking crush. And then the husband or the person who is doing the more male role will typically shift. So I really want to keep language like always out of this, because it just it's not true. Right?
Right. No, I absolutely agree. No, I agree with everything you just said. And I didn't, advise it like, that, I mean, that was kind of what I wanted to get to, but mainly because I think I kind of understood why you didn't really agree with me, because I said like the traditional sense always has to be there, because then you touched on it's totally fine for a woman to be the breadwinner, obviously, right? But when I said that is that masculine, again, I mean, I don't know if this is going to contradict what I'm just saying or not, but that's not the point anyways, right? Because sometimes, using the words, we have to be careful with the words. Because something can mean other things, right? When you don't actually mean that. But I feel like it's important that there's always that masculine dominant that dominant masculine, not persona, but personality, right? Because it's important for a woman, no matter how driven or not she is, but especially a woman who's driven, who goes out, right, and she's the boss lady and stuff, and everything is rigid and stuff, and then she comes home and she doesn't want to be the boss lady at home. She wants to be the little girl, right? And so
or just she just wants to feel safe and protected and vulnerable.
Yes, absolutely. And so she just wants to come home and she wants to feel super feminine, right?
Yeah.
But for that to happen, there has to be a super masculine.
Fair.
I believe so. Because women love to feel safe with those energies, right?
I agree. And so that's a beautiful example of where flow changes even throughout the day. When I'm out of the house, I'm a fucking badass. When I'm in the house, I just want to be taken care of and loved on and like cuddled with. And men can be the same way. When men are out of the house, they are fucking like God. And then they come home and they just want to be nurtured and pampered and taken care of. And that goes everywhere, but there's still a dynamic. Because what's happening is men go out and they work, or the woman goes out and works, and she wants to come home and she wants to be taken care of, but both people were working, and they both want to be taken care of, and neither of the person can hold that space. And so that's just where really being honest about your needs in any given moment becomes the next part of this. Babe, I just had a really fucking shitty day. I just need you to like order food and serve it to me on the couch so I can just be a puddle for an hour. Can you give that to me? And every partner should be able to manifest enough energy to be there for their partner for an hour. And then after that hour, I can say, okay, thank you so much for taking care of me. How can I take care of you? But it's still a balance, and it still requires communication versus we often will get to a place of unmet expectations where they should have just fucking read my mind and they didn't read my mind. And now I'm pissed because they should have known that I had a hard day and should have taken care of me. And that's not it, right? And I'm speaking from knowing. I'm speaking from being that person that's like, how do you not have telepathy? We've been together for 10 years. You should just know. And it just doesn't work that way. So it's a constant balance, which is why relationships are the hardest fucking things ever, because you're constantly meeting your mirror and you have to really drop your ego, as you've said earlier, where being vulnerable is a part of dropping that ego, of not being like, I can do it all. I can be the worker and I can take care of the household and I'm going to be okay with it. You know, it typically doesn't work that way.
I love what you're sharing, and it's interesting, and it's good that we all have different perspectives, right? Because that's what makes the conversation more powerful. And what I wanted to touch upon is just it's good when the woman wants to be home, right? And I should say that the part of being mother is one of the toughest part, because for me, I'd rather work than be a homestay mom.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the hardest job ever. And obviously a lot of people undervalue it. But the point is, if the woman wants to and she chooses to stay home and raise the kids and be a great mom, this is fabulous. But if she wants to go and work, it's also her choice. It shouldn't be like, like you have to stay home, right? Because you're a woman.
Well, I also want to catch the language a little bit and connect. I can also go out and work and be a great mom. I can be at home with my kids and be a great mom. And that is a common issue that women are struggling with, is if I am a working mother, I'm not a good mom because I'm not at home enough. But if I'm staying at home and I'm not living to my true potential, well, then I'm not being a good enough woman to myself. And the reality is both are possible. I work and I'm a fucking badass mom and I know it, but I didn't for a really long time.
I saw this video online, actually multiple times right now. I don't know if you ever saw it. So it's this woman, I think she wears glasses, and she's eating pizza, yeah. And she's eating pizza like, oh, like what if like I'm a really shit mom. I'm giving my kid pizza. And then the kid, so cute, the kid was like, no, you're such a good mom. And she's like, oh, that's so kind of you. She's like, yeah, you're a good mom. But okay, apart from that, right? I mean, that's the kid opinion and the mom and everything. But when you look at it from the outside perspective and you observe, it's like, I mean, I'm a man, but I mean, I was raised by a single mom, right? I never had that. I had to become a man on my own. I had to learn how to be a man on my own and not from the wounded masculinity that my mom really had while like raising me. And so like I had to relearn all that. But from the perspective of my own perspective, you're feeding your kids, period. You're not, I mean, I know you're not feeding your kids filet mignon every goddamn day.
That's like from your own cow raised organically in the backyard.
Right.
Yeah.
And with the big house and everything, and then you wake up and you hear the birds singing, and you're like, oh my god, my life is a Disney movie. Like, like, I mean, even if not, like, you're doing your best, and you're not on the street, and you have a roof, and you have water, and your kid is happy, and your kid does not understand money yet, and your kid does not understand all those rules and stuff, and your kid values the amount of attention you give him or give her, right? Like, that's it. It's all about the love, right? So I mean, if your kid is happy, he's fed, is happy, is healthy, you're doing a good job. That's it. You're doing the best that you can. You're doing a great job.
I heard somewhere that if you catch your child singing, that that they're in a really happy, beautiful place. And so every time I catch my children singing or dancing or doing something like that, I'm like, yes, I did a good job today. Even though I wasn't like Instagram standard fucking perfect Mary Poppins mom, I'm like, they're singing. They're so happy. And that, what you just said there, Bruno, is everyone is doing the best they can with the tools and resources that they have. And everyone is running values and beliefs that are not serving them and are serving them. And everyone's had a past. So we are just doing the best that we possibly can. And it takes two people to tango in a relationship, just coming back to our topic. So if both people are willing to grow together, the relationship will stay. If one person is not willing to grow and the other person is, it cannot work. The math doesn't work. And so I really want to kind of circle this back to, I can only control me. I can only control my thoughts and my beliefs and how I want to show up to my life. Everything else is outside of my hands. I can't control the interpretation my kids have of me disciplining them. I can't control, what they think about any particular thing. I can't control the words that they use or the meaning that those words have. And I certainly can't control my partner, because everyone is on their own journey. All I can do is show up and make sure that I'm showing up with the brightest light that I can, living my best life, really owning my shit. And I think if everyone just shows up to their relationship that way, balance will naturally happen and the relationship will naturally grow or dissolve the way it's supposed to. And all of it's okay. All of it's okay.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I agree with you. I totally agree with you. But when you talk about like kids, like especially like, I believe that, like when you show up for yourself in a relationship and your kids are watching, they're going to show up for themselves as well. Because mom is doing that, because daddy's doing that.
Modeling.
It's the modeling. It's the idol, it's, and obviously kids will then grow up, and the gender roles in relationship, that kind of what we're talking about here, that, both have, right, the values behind the gender roles is exactly the same thing that, the kids of the parents will then grow up to do the same thing.
They also have choice to reject it too. They have the choice to reject it. Absolutely, Andrea. I do not disagree with you. But just one thing, they have to be critical aware of that. Yes.
Right.
Agreed.
So they have to be aware, and they have to have a good critical thought to be able to actually understand that. Wait a second, I don't actually have to do this.
Yes.
Right. I mean, technically everybody does it, but I don't.
Yeah.
Right. So I have the choice. Where is the freedom in this?
Yeah.
Right. In fact, I mean, I didn't come up with this, obviously, but I saw this, and I totally agree. And actually, before I saw this, I actually had a conversation with my mom some time ago about it. Which it's interesting because, the coincidences in the universe. But the best thing for a kid to develop their own critical behavior, critical thinking, right? Obviously not judgment, critical thinking, right? And to think more about how do they feel about it, how others feel about it, is that when the kid does something and the kid goes to the parent and the kid goes like, oh, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Do you like it? Do you like it? Do you like it? And obviously the kid is clearly wanting the validation from the parent, right? But instead of saying, how do you like it? Ask, how does he like it?
Mm-hmm.
Because that simple question will program the kid's subconscious mind to automatically, without much effort, to value more his opinion over the years in school, in his relationship, in his friendships, within himself, on what he wants to do, say, think, feel, then really always expecting other people to almost approve it because they like it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's so powerful. It changes everything.
Yeah, I love that.
It's a chain reaction of events, really.
Well, it really is. And one of my favorite questions to ask every client is, how is that a problem for you? Blah, blah, blah is happening. How is that a problem for you? And that's exactly what you just said there. Well, what does that mean to you? Because everyone's brain is wired so differently. And I think that's a really powerful way to stay at cause instead of at effect. And I think that's really cool.
Yes, absolutely. Such a powerful conversation. Any other last thoughts before we wrap up?
Not for me.
Not for me.
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot. And again, we would love to know what people are thinking, what's the audience view about gender roles in relationship, because I think this is the ongoing thing that we all can have the debates and discussions as much as we want to, right? Because like Andrea is mentioning, everybody's brain is functioning different, but as long as it's working for your relationship, it's totally fine, right? Find that middle ground where you understand what is your role in that partnership, and make sure to revisit it, make sure to really communicate, so this way your relationship is gonna be thriving, not just surviving. That's all for today. Thank you so much, Andrea, for joining. It was such a pleasure to see you, and everybody, see you on the next episode.